Howdy, howdy, and welcome back to another Workshop Wednesday. Today it's all about what's new. This is the one we do the first Wednesday of every month, where we basically look back over the last 30 days, the last month or so, in this case, October. We're going to look back at October and see all the latest updates and changes that were released. Now, of course, if this is your first Workshop Wednesday, welcome. My name is Chris Mercer. Actually, do go by Mercer, and I'm the co-founder here at measurementmarketing.io, where you can find us. Maybe you came through some of the podcasts or talks that we've done. We're constantly interviewed on those and always open and looking for more. So if you have a podcast, or maybe somebody you know has a podcast, you think we should be on it, just go ahead and check a look at our homepage. You'll see a place where you can pop in a little form, and love to connect and help out your audience or their audience. Maybe you came from some of the other platforms where our content is featured on such platforms like CXL Institute, Social Media Examiner, Digital Marketer, or Measure Summit. Maybe even measurementmarketing.io because you're already a member, whether you're a free Toolbox member taking advantage of all the tools we have back there for you as a measurement marketer, or a Measurement Marketing Academy member where you've got access to the workshops, the courses, and everything else. However you found us, I am so glad that you are here. It is our job to help people like you learn how to use all these tools like Google Analytics, Tag Manager, Data Studio, Facebook Analytics, and new ones like Microsoft Clarity. It's coming up. So I'll show you that actually today when we go through this particular workshop. Now, we use the measurement marketing framework. We do highlight this every time because it's something you should be using in your own organization. It starts with planning, which is figuring out what's important that you need to get answers to, what questions you want to ask, what information you do need to get those answers, what actions will you take based upon the answers you get. You think all this stuff through. Then you start your builds. We're using Analytics and Tag Manager. And of course, there have been some major changes to those platforms in October 2020. So we're going to go through some of those. Then there's the reports, where you're using probably, hopefully, Google Data Studio. And if not now, you definitely will start to. So Google Data Studio has had some changes. So we're going to update some of those. So that'll come in today. And then, of course, once you have your basic benchmarks coming in, you can start to forecast what your near-term future is going to look like. And ultimately, you measure against your forecasts. That's what will tell you what's working, what's not, and where you should optimize. So that's how the whole thing comes together. And of course, with all these workshops, just make sure you focus on one thing, especially today, because there's so many different things that were updated in October. It's the busiest month I've ever seen. It caused us to have to, and we do this Workshop Wednesday stuff, like we book these things out like 13 weeks in advance. We're a very organized, structured company. And twice in October, we had to change our schedule because there was so much happening. It was crazy. So we're going to go through some of the highlights, you and I together today. But the moral of the story is just focus on one thing, one new idea, one thing you can put into practice. Learn that. You can go back and rewatch this workshop and pick up another new thing. All right, let's go ahead and get officially underway, shall we? What's new? New updates released in October 2020, and we are absolutely just going to dive right in. We're going to start with something that is familiar, which is Google Analytics. So this is Universal Analytics. Now, the big, gigantic update that came through in 2020 was really this thing called Google Analytics 4. Hopefully you've heard of it. Google did this huge email around it. There's been a lot of confusion around this. We did an entire workshop around this, and if you even need it to workshop, so you know, take a look at that. It is in the workshop library if you're in our members area for the Academy members. So you can take a look at it and go through it. Just search for it on YouTube. You'll see it there. As well, but take a look at this new platform. Now I'm gonna flip over. I'm gonna go to our admin. I'm gonna show you the big changes. So one was just renaming it, and I've obviously done some testing and playing around with some stuff, but I'll show you what we've got. So one was renaming it. It used to be called App and Web, and so if you're familiar with App and Web, that's all that is. It was still just the App and Web interface. So now App and Web is called Google Analytics 4, otherwise known as GA4. So you're going to hear lots of people talking about GA4. That's what it is. It is Google Analytics. Now, when Google Analytics made this big giant announcement, which is the one that they emailed everybody and one that basically confused all the world, they were saying, yeah, it's built on App and Web, right? So it's this new upgrade. And in that case, it is. It was an upgrade to App and Web, but it is not an upgrade to Universal Analytics. It is a yes and thing. I want to emphasize this very quickly. And again, we've done workshops to cover this in depth. So if you have questions on those, just search for those workshops and you'll find them. But what's happened here is you have Universal Analytics still. So you can see here we have this little, UA dash. These little numbers say UA dash. These are all Universal Analytics accounts. Anything that doesn't say that, like these, don't have that little UA dash. This is a Google Analytics 4 account. And it looks completely different because, and you can tell right away, no view coming through here. It looks completely different because it is completely different. It's a totally uniquely different platform. So think about some other third-party company creating a new analytics platform and just calling it Google Analytics 4. It's kind of what happened, except that it was Google that created this brand new analytics platform and called it Google Analytics 4. But it is completely different. Different reports, different way of setting it up, different way of structuring. You've got events with everything. It's in much more time than we have to go through here. Again, we've got a course already in the Measurement Marketing Academy. So if you're already a member there, you can go to that Google Analytics 4 Basics course and go through the setup and figure out how all this stuff works. And we also show you how to use Tag Manager, some things to avoid, all that fun stuff to set it up. But you can see here, completely different platform, right? Reports are different. Everything's different as it comes through. There are no goals. Everything's conversion. So you have to wrap your head around it in a different way. I will say I'm liking the reports that have come through here. The one main style of report, and it's not a lot. They don't do a ton of it. In fact, I'm going to flip over to a different style report because yours, again, might look a little different than ours. So if I come into acquisition reports, and I'm just going to show you how kind of the one thing I like, and there's a bunch to like about this. The reason they did this, long story short, was because this is a new world that we are measuring as marketers. And so we've got to have a platform that's built for the new world. I'm going to zoom out a little bit so you can see everything this report has for us. Here we go. So you can see here, it's got the same sort of thing as like your source medium report in a way. It's that what they call that ABC report. So here is all the little drop downs. The A was the acquisition. Here's like acquisition numbers, how many people are coming through the thing that you're measuring, whatever it is. Again, it could be traffic source or whatever else, source medium. Then there's engagement metrics, which come through, which I think are better. You notice bounce rate goes away. Now it's all about engaged sessions, which are sessions that have been there for more than 10 seconds, because this platform does a much better job of measuring time, which is awesome. And then you can tie it to results. Results in this case are just conversions, and you dedicate conversion events. So there are no more goals in e-commerce. It's like everything's an event. So some events are going to be purchase events. Some events are going to be lead events. Some events are going to be other type of events that you might have, like scroll or something else that you decide is a conversion. So you can still tie in for our members. We talk about A's goals a lot: awareness goals, completion goals, engagement goals along the way. You need to be able to set up various stages of goals so you can tie in your traffic sources to your results. This report does a really good job of that still. Again, completely different platform with a learning curve, but it was the new kid on the block. Now, the big reason, I'm going to zoom back in just a little bit here, that this was kind of shock to most people. All of a sudden people started going, they stood up and paid attention to this thing called GA4, was because when you go to create a property, and this was really the big update, is Google said, you know what? We're going to force everybody to GA4, or at least let's say heavily encourage you to use GA4, because by default, it's it. It used to be you had a big 3 blocks up here. One said web and one said mobile. And then down here it said app and web. Well, now it's just you set up a property. It's by default a Google Analytics 4 property. Now, can you set up a universal? Yes. You go to show advanced. You come down here, it says create universal. You're going to click that and you're going to do both. Always do both, because you're going to need both. Remember, this is a yes and thing. You should not stop using Universal Analytics. It is an amazing platform. It's going to have legs for years still. You will still be using Universal Analytics, and you probably will use that for your marketing for at least the next year on a pretty heavy basis. However, Google Analytics 4 is the Google Analytics of the future, and you absolutely want to start using it now to get used to it, because it is radically different, and you will need time to rethink and retrain yourself how you think about this stuff. And of course, we'll be doing workshops on it. We've got already a course in it for our members. So if you're already a member, just watch that Google Analytics 4 Basics course that's back there in our Win courses, so you can get your head wrapped around this. And that's what we're doing. We're just sort of playing around with it right now. We've got a property set up. It's got data coming through. We're not using it to make any big marketing decisions, because that's what we use Universal Analytics for. But I would expect within about 6 to 9 months, we probably will be using Google Analytics 4, because it is the platform of the future. It's going to do a better job tracking and measuring users. It's going to be a better job of us kind of getting an understanding of what our data looks like, even if, and we all are, in a world where we have partial data, because it uses a lot of AI and machine learning to help fill in the gaps that are otherwise there from browsers like Brave that don't track users anymore or measure users, or just Chrome or extensions that people use, and all the other stuff that happens in today's world. So this is built for today's world, for the way that users cross devices. There's a lot of benefits to using GA4. And so that for those reasons, you should absolutely set it up. Again, this particular workshop is all about informing you of what the latest changes are. So if you have not yet seen this, then now's the time to dig into GA4. We've got workshops on it. Again, we've got courses if you're already a Measurement Marketing member, or Measurement Marketing Academy member, I should say. But again, we also have workshops in Google, because like I said, in October, we had to do a couple of workshops around new stuff because there were such big changes. And one of them was, should I be using GA4? Should I be using Google Analytics 4? So be sure to check that out. Okay. Other than that, this was huge, there was nothing really to talk about in terms of analytics. A couple things to mention for those of you who may have started using GA4 in the beginning of the month, so beginning of October. Well, by the end of October, you had BigQuery in here. You can go into data streams. You will now notice if you go into your data stream, and again, if this doesn't mean anything right now, that's okay. It will as you practice it. But under data streams, you now have tagging settings and you have measurement protocol access. So now you're starting to get a little bit more details coming through of some of the more finer features in tagging settings. This is absolutely something you have to look at. You can now configure your domains for cross-domain measurement. Whereas normally you would do this with like a tag manager or something like that, or maybe code on the pages. Well, you don't do that with GA4. GA4, again, was built knowing, hey, here's what the world looked like, and everybody uses different tech. Everybody uses different tech. They have different domains that the customer journey crosses over. Like, let's just build the platform so that we can tell the platform, hey, these are all the same domain. Please treat them the same and make sure traffic attribution remains intact. This is what it does. So it's smart. It's so smart that they're doing this. But you've got to pay attention to this. Also, you can modify create events, define your internal traffic. There's lots of cool things that are back here that are kind of rolling out on almost a daily basis. And all of the love and attention, all of it is going into Google Analytics 4. So this is the analytics of the future, of probably the not so distant future, maybe about a year out. You might start using it on a daily basis even, but you got to start now. So right now, when it's not that big a deal, right? Not now when there's not a lot of pressure for you to get caught up, because this is the smallest, most manageable this platform will ever be. And practically every week they're adding new things to it. So get in there now while it's relatively easy to learn, because there's a little bit of stuff back there. It's not a perfect platform. It's not meant to be perfect today. But they're rolling it out and they're giving big chunks of it that we can all play with and set up and get used to the thinking that's behind it. And including things like filters that you couldn't even do filters before. Now you can do filters. This was also released very, very recently in October. So now you can filter stuff. So there are new things back here to be looking at. And this is what it's going to be like for the next month. I'm going to come back here and find new stuff and play around with it and learn. But it's okay because it's not going to mess up with my numbers at all, because I'm not using it for real decisions. I'm using it to learn. That's what I suggest you do as well for GA4. Okay, with Tag Manager. And I thought this was funny because when I look at, I always go through and I research for this particular workshop, for the What's New workshops. I go through all the change logs and see what the official announcements were for Google and everything else. And they did not mention anything about this preview popping up, which was pretty funny. Now, if you use Tag Manager at all, you are probably already familiar with this because this happened practically overnight, unexpectedly at the end of October, where when you clicked on preview, and again, we were not going to go through the entire system here, but it opened up this new platform called tagassistant.google.com. So you can see this tagassistant.google.com right up here. Well, that was this new platform whose job it is to debug. So now Tag Manager opens up Tag Assistant, and that sets up the preview. So it is a completely different preview. Again, much more time than what we have to go into here. I want to make sure you're aware of this. If you haven't used Tag Manager in the last few weeks and you go in to do a little preview, your life is going to get turned on its side because it is not at all like the old preview at all. There are a lot of nuances to it. It's a completely different system. And Google just kind of like popped it out to the world and upset a lot of people because they didn't have a lot of documentation that said, hey, what's going on? So now they've added this, which is good. So it's kind of talked about, here are the pros and cons. And I'll tell you, short story, definitely more pros than cons. It's annoying that it popped up. And yes, there's a learning curve to it, but that's all right. We have also done workshops that cover the new Tag Assistant GTM preview mode. So you can see those. They're on YouTube channel, Measurement Marketing Academy members. We have workshops already for those as well. I'm back there for you. So you can find them and you get used to it and go through some stuff. Of course, if you're a Measurement Marketing Academy member, you can use the Ask Instructor support that we have back there. Ask our instructors if you need help with it. Send over video screenshots, and we will send over videos and screenshots to you to help you get unstuck and on your way. So, but make sure you are aware that this is there. So if, again, you haven't used your own Tag Manager account, maybe you come in like once every few months or something like that to kind of maintain it, I would make an excuse to come in here and play with this preview mode to learn it, because you will need to do that, or it'll be very frustrating if somebody says, hey, go set up this pixel for me, and then you go in there and do the preview mode, and now what used to be a 2-minute thing for you to do is going to take you 20 minutes because you got to figure out this new preview mode. So go through the preview mode videos that we have for you, and again, just search for those, and you'll see them on our YouTube channel, as well as Measurement Marketing Academy. If you happen to be an Academy member already, watch those. Then go through it on your own. It'll give you a little, it's not that hard to learn it, but there are some nuances, including if you have to measure across different domains in a customer journey. So we demonstrated all of that going through there. But know that that is now a thing, and Tag Assistant.google.com is a whole new platform made just for debugging, which I'm kind of excited about because they do a lot of cool things there. There are huge pros to this new preview mode, including keeping everything in one place. So you don't lose your preview mode as you go from page to page to page. There's lots of huge benefits, but you should play around with it. So make sure you're aware of that. So far, Google Analytics 4, big, gigantic, massive thing that came out, and features within GA4, like doing filters, like measurement protocol for those that are using that, or like the cross-domain measurement, being dedicate your internal traffic and define what that means to you, modifying and creating events, like all of this stuff that's available now in GA4, and constantly rolling out new stuff. So we will obviously update you every month, but definitely get involved in GA4. And with Tag Manager, it's the new preview mode was the biggest deal, for sure. This is what they actually mentioned in their previews, like, oh, we also do this now. Like you can select different things, and you can kind of pause tags together and everything else. I think this is awesome. I think it's great, and I think it's super cool. And I think we also featured it technically in our last What's New thing, because it came out right before that. But this is also new. So if you haven't come through here, you can kind of do bulk editing and things like that. It's a better search as well. So they've done a really good job of helping you search through tags that you may have put in. So you can see the ones that we did here. All right, that brings us to the thing that normally was the winner for all the updates. I think right now the winner is, in terms of Google products, is Google Analytics 4 and Tag Manager. It's a tie because they were both major, gigantic, massive updates. In Data Studio, it was a little, it was good. Don't get me wrong. I love Team Data Studio. They do a great job, and they've taken the title pretty much for the last 2 years in terms of all the new stuff that's coming out. But this month, it was some tinier changes. It makes sense because Google was very focused on Tag Manager and Analytics. So some of the things are, if you go into your conditional formatting, where most of it is. Now, this is just a standard table, but pivot tables you can now do conditional formatting with, and you can compare different metrics within a pivot table. You can also use date and time fields. So if one of your quantifiers is a time metric or a date metric, you can also use conditional formatting for that now, which wasn't possible, but now is. They also, and this is something again that was relatively new or new-ish. They rolled out the ability, and I'm just going to go here. We're going to go to a new data source. Let's just see here. Actually, I'm going to show you one other thing. The community visualizations was also, right in here. Community visualizations was updated. So if you go to explore more, you'll see there's different ways to add in community visualizations. So lots more that are back here. Always make sure you check this out because they're trying to really push this. And I think there's some cool visualizations back there. So know that is back there. And the Google Maps, you can add a legend to it as well, which before you couldn't do. So now with Google Maps as a chart, which is right in there, you can now add legends, which didn't exist. Now, the thing I wanted to show you as we come through here is in the data source. This is the thing that will impact you the most. So I'm just going to come through here, and I want to edit a new data source. I want to add a new data source. So let me go up to resources. I don't know why I'm doing it like, oh, that's exactly what I wanted. Sorry. Let me go back to add data resources. We're going to add a data source. So in Google Analytics, this is the new thing. There is the Google Analytics data sources. You go into your account. You still go into your account. However, what used to be there was just these UAs. You just had access to Universal Analytics. Now you have access to GA4s as well. That's huge because you're going to have to, and this is a big sort of meta way of thinking about Google Analytics 4. Google Analytics 4, now again, notice there is no view, right? Because Google Analytics 4, this is universal, so you have views. Google Analytics 4 does not have a view, and it also identifies itself as GA4 here, otherwise known as no number next to it. Doesn't have the little UA. Remember, UA is Universal Analytics, GA4 is the Google Analytics 4. But the reason that I mention this is because now Google Analytics 4 connects as a data source into Data Studio. This is incredibly important because what's basically happening, kind of this overall direction in terms of digital measurement, is you have these massive platforms by Google, which are amazing on their own. and absolutely unstoppable when they're put together. Those three platforms primarily are Google Tag Manager, which collects all your information, Google Analytics, in this case, Google Analytics 4, where you store the information, and then Google Analytics 4 connects into Data Studio, where you build the reports that give you the answers so you can go take the actions you need to take. Those three platforms, collect, store, and report. Tag Manager collects, Google Analytics 4, in this case, will start to store the data, and you're still going to send it to Universal, so you'll still use both, and then Google Data Studio, so if you're to build reports, because Google Analytics 4 is not really built for reports. It's not built for super easy answers. It's not a really quick landing page report back there like Universal has. It's made, Google Analytics 4 specifically, is made for you to analyze data and do deep dive into it. So like data scientists are rejoicing because they finally have an analytics platform that's allowing them to analyze data. It's built for analysis, not simple reports. And I know I'm saying simple in air quotes because Google Analytics reports sometimes are not all that simple, especially if you're not used to it. But Data Studio reports are. Building out your Data Studio dashboards are. So if you're not yet using Data Studio as a platform, now it's time. 2021, you got to start setting up your goals and say, okay, by the end of 2021, we will have Tag Manager collecting our data. We will have Google Analytics storing our data. We'll have Data Studio reporting on our data and visualizing that data in a way that leads to action. So there's lots of ways to do that. Again, we've got courses at Measurement Marketing Academy that cover all of that stuff, how to set up Google Analytics, Tag Manager, Data Studio, etc. So, or of course, we'll have workshops as well for those of you that are fans of Workshop Wednesday. Now, finally, this was cool. Microsoft. That's a word we don't normally say here at Workshop Wednesday. Microsoft has come out with a completely free analytics platform that I highly recommend you try. It's pretty cool. So I'm going to show you what ours looks like. Again, we're not going to do a deep dive into it because it's just, this is the way it is. Like, you know, these workshops, this particular workshop is a what's new workshops. It's all about kind of helping you learn this new thing. It's called Clarity, and you just go to clarity.microsoft.com. Now, when you do this, you set up an account. It'll give you a little piece of script, very similar to like Analytics or Tag Manager or anything like that. And you put the script on your page. I used Google Tag Manager to put the script on our pages. So I used Tag Manager, I put it on the pages. A few hours later, I came back to this and I did nothing else. No other setup at all. I just put the script on the pages. This is what I got. I think this is kind of cool. Now, again, am I making any massive decisions off of this? No. This is a brand new platform. We are playing around with it. We are exploring it. We're not judging it one way or the other, but we are taking a look at some of the interesting things like rage clicks. I think that's pretty cool. So now in our case, not a whole lot going on, but this is basically people that are clicking on the same small thing over and over again. So maybe that's a button somewhere that's not linked properly, or something that looks like a button that isn't a button that somebody's clicking on, right? Those are rage clicks. And this platform kind of shows that. And what we can do is we can come down here and we can go to the recording section, and then it pulls up a recording of the rage click. So I can go through here and say, okay, what was the rage click that was happening? So in this case, it looks like there was a lesson or something that may have been playing in the members areas. This is something that didn't load properly. Actually, it's one of our developers, even better. So I can tell by who that is. So one of our team members is going through trying to find something to load. But again, this is what I like about this platform. So I'm going to go back to the dashboard here. I can see, dead clicks. So clicks that are going to a page, tapped on a page with no effect. Now, again, sometimes people do that, right? They'll click on a page off to the side. Didn't really mean to. It is what it is. But you have all this cool little stuff coming through here. JavaScript errors. We can investigate that stuff. I can go through my operating systems. I can see all that. But these things, the recordings, so I'm going to click on rage clicks and take that off as a filter. So for the last 3 days, so I go, okay, well, let's go look at, I don't know any of these. So somebody that came in from the members area, and I can see as they log in, right, put their details in the members area, coming log in. Let's go into the home page here and see somebody interacting with the home page. That's coming through. So it's kind of got the basics of the recordings, right? Now, again, this isn't exactly what they're seeing. They're not seeing dots and stuff. This is just the platform kind of anonymizing stuff because it doesn't really matter. It lets me know and the signals, right, as it's filling everything in. But I can go through and I can watch what somebody did. It's anonymized. It's GDPR compliant and free. Like free. Hello. This is for sure an action item to take a look at. So recordings, I didn't tell it what to record. It just did all of them. I think that's amazing. Heat maps. It does heat maps as I'm going through. So this is very similar, very eerily similar to a Hotjar or a Crazy Egg or something like that. So now it does that stuff. So now, Hotjar still has its benefits. If you're using Hotjar as a platform, we use Hotjar still, where it does like surveys and everything else. But this is, one of those things where I'm like, wow, this is pretty cool. So I can go through and you can see, pull up the different pages by filter. In this case, this is our member login page. I can take a look at all of these different things in terms of the heat maps coming through. I can look at scroll map, different device types. Again, I did nothing to set this up other than put a piece of script on the page using Tag Manager. And the script just came from the settings. You go in the settings section, it says, hey, put this script on the page. You have to wait a few hours for it to collect some data and pop up. And then it just starts doing its thing. All the recordings are there. All the heat maps are there. And I cannot tell you, this is one thing, again, I love Hotjar. I've used Hotjar for years. I think Hotjar is a great company. And we continue to this very moment to have a paid account with Hotjar, so I love it. True Conversion is also a great tool for something like that. That's out there. So, but this just sort of did it on its own. And I think that's amazing. I really like that. I didn't have to worry about recordings. I didn't have to go into the system and set up a recording. I didn't have to, worse yet, is when we go, hey, can we go look at recordings for this page to figure out how to optimize it? And people go, ooh, we didn't set up recordings for that page. And you go, oh, all right, well, there's a lost opportunity. Well, here, I can just go and say, okay, well, let's go look at, let's just try this. I'm going to try this right now. So LP/membership and Measurement Marketing Academy. There I go. So I can see it. There's the Measurement Marketing Academy page, and let's see if this helps us or not. Again, free, so I'm not going to freak out that much if it doesn't quite work the way I want it to. I'm just starting off. So in this case, there you go. So there's our page. This is actually our Hotjar survey that was on that page that was captured, but I can go through, take a look at, clicks, scrolls, whatever else coming through. Again, this is the last 3 days, pull it over the last 30 days. But fantastic. That's all I can say about this. This is useful for me. I think this is great. And I think this is going to be something, this is one of my pins now. Do you know how much it takes to earn a pin on my Chrome? Okay, just right click and then you hit pin. That's all it is. I'm not going to unpin it, but it's a pin. So it's going to be an increasingly popular tool. So I would look at it. Again, it's free. So the price is right. You just get started. You sign in with your Microsoft account. I signed in with my Google account. Which I suggest you do, just keep it all under one email. And just a little piece of code, off to the races. So you can learn more about what it does here. But this was the biggest update for me. I think, from a Google perspective, analytics and Tag Manager, massive changes to both those platforms, which were to the benefit of them both. Those platforms are going to be much stronger next year, especially as this thing grows out. But then Microsoft Clarity came out in October as well, completely free. So you can take a look at it. So I think this is something worth absolutely looking for. Again, GDPR compliant as well for those, obviously just this world is going to be data compliance and privacy are the things. That's why GA4 is doing what it's doing. It's why Tag Manager is doing what it's doing. It's because this is how it's going. And Microsoft Clarity just threw their name in the hat. So take a look at it. Completely free, super cool, very, very easy to set up. And then you've got a nice little dashboard to play around with. All right. So with that, what was your one thing? I know there was a ton that we covered, a ton this month. It was normally these workshops are like 15 minutes for the what's news. This one was huge because Google Analytics 4, big, gigantic platform. It is a yes and. Remember that, a yes and. You do not stop using Universal Analytics. If you happen to be in a position where you are creating a new Google Analytics account, you do both. Hit that advanced section that I showed you, click on both and create both accounts. You want a Universal Analytics because that's the one you're going to be using in the real world for a while, a very long while. And then you do GA4 because you're going to have to start using that platform because that is the future. And eventually everything will really gear itself toward GA4. And you want to build your skills now when it really doesn't matter. There's no real pressure to learn it, which is why you should learn a little bit at a time because you don't want to have to learn it when all the pressure's on. So, which again, could be about a year out, but now's the time to practice it. And we've hopefully made it a little easier with you with some of the workshops that we've got back there. Tag Manager, the preview mode, massive. If you have not used Tag Manager recently, get back there and practice preview before you have to. Because again, there's nothing worse than somebody saying, hey, we need this pixel on the page in the next 5 minutes, and then you rush to do it, and they realize preview mode's something you've got to learn now because it looks completely different. So get some experience with it now. And then finally, Data Studio has its things, and there's some cool stuff, but not a lot with Data Studio, let's be honest, not this month. But Microsoft Clarity was my one thing out of all of these. And there were some major updates, but Microsoft Clarity was kind of a new tool where I'm like, this is interesting that Microsoft's throwing their hat in the ring. They are doing a lot of automated measurement of stuff that you might want to know about, which I thought was kind of useful. They have the recordings and the heat maps, and it's just a really good addition to everything else you're already doing from a measurement perspective. So hopefully that was one of those, should have been at least your one thing. Now remember, if you want future workshops, all you need to do is subscribe. The next one coming up is actually the do's and don'ts of dashboard design. It's what we call our Getting Started workshop. Every week we rotate for a different category. This week, of course, is all about what's new. Next week, we rotate to Getting Started. So we're going to talk to our beginners, those just starting out. We're going to talk about the do's and don'ts of designing your dashboards to make sure that they are useful and giving answers that ultimately lead to action, whether it's for yourself or for somebody you're designing them for, maybe a client or your boss. So we'll help you out with that. Just be sure, if you want to make sure that you get access to this, subscribe to the channel. So go ahead and subscribe right now. Take a moment to be notified so that it will email you and say, hey, this workshop just went out. Hopefully many of you are already doing that as you come through. Also, if you haven't subscribed already, so be sure to do that. And I should say, do this as well. Measurement Marketing Toolbox. I mentioned this early on in this episode, but we have our free Measurement Marketing Toolbox. It is something we do to sort of just help support the community. It's got the Workshop Wednesday back there, so you can always get caught up in the most recent workshop that we have produced. And you also have a bunch of measurement marketing tools. So we give those to you. So we got a traffic tracking toolkit, Google Analytics report card, marketing behavior toolkit, GTM cookbook for those that are into Tag Manager. As we come out with new tools for Google Analytics 4, we will put them back here as well. So you have all sorts of tools that will be free, that are currently free, and you get them as a Toolbox member. It is completely free to do that. So measure.tips/WW. If you're not already, create your free membership now. Measure.tips/WW. You can just click a little tab, browser tab, open it up so you have access to it as soon as this workshop is over. Create your free membership. Just a name and email, send your login details. You have access to everything there. And we look forward to seeing you back in the members area. Now, the final thing I will make you aware of, if you are not yet already, I mentioned it a few times already, but Measurement Marketing Academy. This is our paid program. So if you're a professional, if you really want to learn this stuff, and more importantly, if you want a place that has courses, that has individual focus workshops, that has all the tools and resources, but the most important thing you're looking for is support. You want to have somebody you can turn to ask questions. We have instructors back there, and we have an entire system that's dedicated. We call it the Ask an Instructor support system. It's all part of the Measurement Marketing Academy. Just go to measure.tips/getacademy. You'll see all the different things that we offer back there. Pretty much anything you could want on Google Analytics, from setup all the way through Google Analytics 4 even. So Universal Analytics, Google Analytics 4, Google Tag Managers back there, beginners, beyond basics, all of that. You've got measurement strategy we talk about. Lots of different things on how to measure different things, how to think about different things. So if you're more of a strategy perspective, you'll find there's plenty back there. And of course, Data Studio. And eventually we'll be doing some new things with these other tools that are coming out as well. I can definitely see for 2021. We typically do new courses every 4 to 6 weeks. It's either a brand new one or an update to an existing one. In fact, we are recording Win Search Console right now. So we're doing a course on Search Console. And last week we did our Google Analytics 4 Basics course. So we updated that one. So you had that back there. So there's lots of cool stuff that's available at the Measurement Marketing Academy. Take a second to peruse that and see if that's a good fit for you. Measure.tips/getacademy. It's my personal mission to make that the last thing that you'll ever need, but it's there. Measure.tips/getacademy to learn more about that. And with that, we'll officially bring this one to a close. This has been What's New? New updates released in October 2020. Thanks again for watching this workshop, and we will see you on the next one. Take care.